what if I told you that Lunar Charge critting is a scam? So here's how the new reaction functions in Razor language. Okay, so Lunar Charged is the new reaction coming out in 5.8 which acts as a replacement for Electro Charge in teams with Ineffa in them. Basically, having Ineffa in the team enables this reaction instead of the traditional Electro Charge. But how exactly does this reaction function? Well, the base logic is the same wherein you gotta apply Electro and Hydro on the enemy to trigger this reaction. But unlike Electro Charge, which triggers a dot effect every 0.5 seconds, Lunar Charge summons a Thundercloud instead, which does a Thunder Strike every 2 seconds, and the damage dealt is considered as Lunar Charge damage. Now, this type of damage done by the Thundercloud is what we call Reaction Lunar Charge. However, there's another type called Direct Lunar Charge that's way more busted, but we will discuss that later. So, like I said, in Reaction Lunar Charge, the Thundercloud deals damage every 2 seconds, but what exactly does this damage depend on? Well, you see, unlike other reactions which only rely on the stats of the unit who triggered the reaction, Lunar Charge can potentially consider all units in the team to calculate damage. But how exactly does that work, you ask? Well, you see, Lunar Charge takes into account the stats of all units who have applied an element to the enemy within the 2-second interval. Now, I know you must have heard by now that this reaction can crit, which, like I said in the beginning, is a scam. And the reason I say that will be clear after I explain how the damage is calculated with an example. So, let's consider a team of Clorand, Xingqiu, Fischl and Ineffa. Now, in this scenario, let's assume that within the 2-second interval, all 4 units applied an element to the enemy. Now, I want to direct your attention to the Lunar Charge formula. In this, the Ineffa passive variable is any % damage increase to the reaction's base damage, which in this case is Ineffa's passive itself. And the second variable, other bonus, is essentially any reaction damage bonus besides bonuses to base damage like the signature weapon or the updated Thundering Fury set or even Aoife's passive. So going back to the example, since all 4 units had applied an element to the enemy, each unit's individual contribution is calculated based on the Lunar Charge formula. So let's assume these stats for each unit, and out of the 4, only Xingqiu is the one that does not crit in the reaction. By the way, whether or not each individual unit crits in the reaction is based on the unit's own crit rate. Now, the game calculates the Lunar Charge damage of each unit based on these stats, and then the damage obtained is sorted in descending order. After that, the final Lunar Charge damage is calculated by adding the highest damage with half of the second highest damage and 1/12 of the third and fourth highest damage. Now, this value we obtained is what will be shown whenever the Thundercloud strikes, provided all units applied an element to the enemy and only Xingqiu was the one that did not crit. Now, one interesting thing to note here is that the damage number shown in-game will either have a big font size indicating crit if even one of the units participating in the reaction crits, or a small font size indicating non-crit if all units didn't crit. And that's why I call Lunar Charge being able to crit a scam, because the reaction itself does not have any aggregate crit rate or anything like that. It's just a big or small font size based on whether at least one unit was able to crit or not. And if you have been enjoying this video so far, then a sub to the channel would make you win every 50-50. And if you want to support even more, scroll 2 inches down this video and click the subscribe plus button to join the channel memberships and gain exclusive perks like directly DMing me on Discord or even a Genshin account review. Now, besides this, there is another type of Lunar Charge called Direct Lunar Charge, and it's named as such because of the fact that it's not directly reliant on Hydro or Electro characters in the team. In fact, this is what Ineffa's passive actually is. To give you a quick recap of her abilities, Ineffa's skill summons a mini robot which deals damage to the enemy every 2 seconds. However, thanks to her passive, an additional hit is dealt along with the skill hit every 2 seconds if there is a Lunar Charge Thundercloud on the field. And this additional damage is considered as Lunar Charge damage, thus the name Direct Lunar Charge, since it's occurring directly without relying on Hydro or Electro characters per se. Now, if you take a look at its damage formula, you will find that it straight up has a 3x multiplier, and just like Reaction Lunar Charge, it also ignores the enemy's defense, which is just massive. So in our example, Ineffa will only contribute 6k damage to Reaction Lunar Charge, while Direct Lunar Charge damage will literally be 4 times of that, being 25,000. And if you have been listening to what I have been yapping, you would have figured out by now that Ineffa and Lunar Charge go hand in hand, meaning you can't talk about one without talking about the other. And this is why I say that Lunar Charge is insane, because if you combine both Reaction and Direct Lunar Charge, you are getting a respectable damage of 50k per tick, and that's in a subpar team with stats I made the fuck up. Also, right now there is no dedicated artifact set or character in-game which can buff Lunar Charge directly, which means that in the future, the reaction will be receiving substantial buff, at least if some suspicious dreams are to be believed. Which means that its damage at the moment is literally at its bare minimum and will go
even further beyond!
in the future. And that's
Not a prediction. That's a spoiler.